So the NFL trade deadline is nearing, and the Baltimore Ravens are a Super Bowl contender that's been very aggressive in the past since Eric DeCosta has taken over as general manager a few years ago. He's made a trade at the deadline every season except for one, trading for Roquan Smith, Yannick Ngakoue, Calais Campbell, Marcus Peters, and even attempting to trade for running back Derrick Henry last season before it was vetoed by Titans ownership. So we got some top trade targets that the Ravens are rumored to, some talk and some speculation, as well as some really exciting stats that prove the Ravens are a true problem in the NFL, a true Super Bowl contender. We also have some more encouraging stats on why the defense can improve and some other roster transactions. So we got all that and more. Welcome into another episode of Ravens Reports, man. It's your guy Noah here with For the Flock. As always, bringing you guys our top 5 news reports and storylines coming out of our Baltimore Ravens today. At number 1, let's talk about the possibility of some trades. First of all, we're going to go through a few guys, but I want to know, out of these guys we go through, let me know in the comments section below who you'd be most excited about. The Ravens are a pretty complete football team right now, but I think if they were to make a move, they would probably add some more depth at wide receiver and or edge rusher. So one team we already know is open for business is the Cleveland Browns. Whether or not the Baltimore Ravens would do business with a division rival remains to be seen. They've done it before with Pittsburgh when they traded Chris Wormley, I think it was, but they just traded Amari Cooper to a AFC rival in the Buffalo Bills. They have another guy, a former Baltimore Ravens, Darius Smith, that's been rumored to the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, he was one of the ones that got away. He was one of the guys that I wish we would have paid when he went to Green Bay a few years ago. I mean, he absolutely balled out. I think he had like a 12 sack and a 14 sack season. Was really dominant, and he has been dominant ever since. He's not quite the same as his like true prime, but he's still 32 years old. We saw what Kyle Van Noy is doing at 34 right now. He's got 3 sacks, and he's still very disruptive this season. The Browns are 1-5. This is a possibility for the Ravens. Another team could be open for business is the Tennessee Titans. They're 1-4. DeAndre Hopkins is a guy that Lamar Jackson was openly wanted in the past. He wanted DeAndre Hopkins and Odell Beckham Jr. before he was signed to that massive contract. And obviously the Ravens got him Odell, didn't get D-Hop. But D-Hop, 32 years old. He has 175 yards this season. Still showing some high-level play and production. His big thing is his hands, contested catch ability, and his ability to high point the football with a little bit of a bigger frame than some of the receivers we have. Another receiver on the Titans is Calvin Ridley, who has had some pretty strong seasons within the last 2 years. This year, he doesn't have the same production, and he seems to be a little bit frustrated. He's 29 years old, still talented, could be available as well. We're going to run through these kind of rapid fire, and again, let me know in the comments section below who you guys would be most interested in. One of my biggest guys that would be like my dream trade for the Ravens that I think would truly put them over the hump to win a Super Bowl is Raiders defensive end, edge rusher, outside linebacker, do-it-all, star stud, Max Crosby. He has 5.5 sacks this season. He's one of the best edge rushers in the game. I think it's between him, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett. They're the best in the business. Max Crosby is a monster. He's got a relentless motor. He's powerful. He's savvy. His technique, his strength, his explosion, his bend, all of it is elite for Max Crosby. Obviously, there'd be a high asking price to get a premier player like this at that position. Obviously, the Raiders are 2-4, clearly rebuilding. Have already went away from Gardner Minshew as their starting quarterback and have already traded Devontae Adams. Could Max Crosby be another guy that they would be willing to part ways with? That remains to be seen, but his name has been swirling around in the rumor mill. Another guy is for the Panthers. The Panthers obviously not getting off to the start they want. They've already started. They've already benched their quarterback that they thought was the next, franchise quarterback for them. They have Andy Dalton starting now, but they have a talented receiver in Deontay Johnson, who's only 28 years old, has 340 yards, and he already has 3 games this season out of 6 where he's went over 75 yards. He also has 3 touchdowns. Deontay Johnson could be another guy, the Raven, another playmaker, good route runner. A little bit of a different flavor of the wide receivers we have right now. My favorite wide receiver trade candidate would probably be Broncos wide receiver Courtland Sutton. The Ravens have been rumored to, actually, it was one of the big Ravens reporters. I think it was Jeff Zrebiec. Don't quote me on that for sure. But a few years ago, the Ravens, it came out that the Ravens were pursuing Courtland Sutton in a trade before they couldn't get the deal done over the finish line. However, the Broncos, they have their rookie quarterback that they're building around. They're 3-3. There's still hope there. So would he be available? I'm not convinced that he would, but if he is, man, I would love the Ravens to pull a move on Courtland Sutton. Very talented, underrated. I think he's always been, in my book, a top 15 type of receiver in the NFL, but it's gone under the radar. He's had poor quarterback play over the last few years, but he's a big body, strong, fast, downfield, can run routes as well. I love Courtland Sutton. He's one of my favorite under the radar type receivers in the NFL. Another guy is Jaguars wide receiver Christian Kirk. He has 5,000 career yards. He has a season 2 years ago with 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns with the Jags. This year, he has 296 yards, a touchdown with a long catch of 61 yards. So still an explosive receiver that can make plays. And there's some more guys out there. Let me know in the comments who else that we didn't talk about, because I really do think the Ravens could pull the trigger on a trade here. Some people are saying maybe some more depth in the secondary, a free safety or a corner. A lot of fans want another pass rusher. However, I am excited about Yannick Ngakoue, Odafe Owe, Kyle Van Noy's played well. And I also want to see more playing time for David Ojabo, who got off to a hot start to start the year, but has since seen his playing time dip a little bit. So I like the guys we have there. I also like the guys we have in the receiver room. But the question is, if you want to be going deep into the playoffs, we're about to be hitting some cold November, December, January, and hopefully February football. Injuries do happen. If a receiver, if Zay or Bate were to go down, how would you feel about the receiving core after that? If Zay went down, Bateman would be the number one, and then you'd have Nelly or Tylan Wallace as the number two. Suddenly, it's a much bigger problem, right? Same thing if Bate went down, Zay's the number one, and then Nelly's the number two. So as far as depth, you can never have enough weapons, and the same can be said about corners and pass rushers as well. So I do think there's a strong chance the Ravens make a move because they're true Super Bowl contenders. And at number 3, let's talk about why they are true Super Bowl contenders. First of all, the Ravens are number 1 in passing efficiency right now and number 1 in rushing efficiency. That's very, very rare, uncharted territory. This is per Next Gen Stats. Also, they are 878 yards over in run differential. So they have rushed for 878 more yards than all of their opponents this season. I mean, that's the best ever through the first 6 weeks of a season since 1933. 1933 is how long it's been since we've seen a stat like this in the NFL. The Ravens are dominant as a rushing team. They're number 1 in passing efficiency, slinging the ball over the place. They got weapons. They have the number 1 run defense. They have some room for improvement with their pass defense. No questions about that. But this team as a whole, obviously they've won their last 4 straight for a reason. And the Ravens offense, man, this could be the best offense Baltimore's ever had. Let's just be real. We talked about the possibility of this being the case. We said, hey, if Zay and Bate play to their potential and Derrick Henry's still Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson's still Lamar Jackson, like, this could be the best Ravens offense we've ever seen. So far, those things have taken place, and it looks like it could be the best offense we've ever seen as far as the Baltimore Ravens go. They are number 1 in the NFL in yards per game. Best offense in football, 453.7. And rushing yards per game, they're first, 205.3. That's unheard of. Third down percentage, they're the best in the NFL, 51.5%. So you say, oh, we'll just make them throw the football. We'll just make them put them in disadvantageous positions. And no, like, we're 2nd and 13, 3rd and 15, and we're still throwing strikes for first downs on third down conversions. Best in the NFL, 31.5%. And red zone percentage, touchdown percentage, we're the first in that category as well. 75% of the time we're in the red zone, we punch it in for a touchdown and pay dirt. Same thing in first downs per game. We have 25 first downs per game. And in sacks allowed, we're also first in the NFL with 7. And it's not just because of the offensive line. A big part of that is Lamar Jackson is as elusive in the pocket as he's ever been, and is buying time for his receivers downfield and sending strikes. It's just sending dimes downfield. So this offense, is the top reason why they're a true Super Bowl contender. At number 4, let's flip to the defense, because yesterday we talked about how the defense is a little bit better than the numbers show. Yesterday we talked about how the Ravens are second in the NFL as far as how often their cornerbacks have allowed separation. Even though teams have had success as far as total passing yards against us, we've forced a lot of those plays to be made in tight coverage, and sometimes the receiver and quarterback have made really good plays. Part of that is because we've had to play guys like, Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen. So we've seen a pretty good slate of not only the best quarterbacks, but some of the best receivers in the game. Terry McLaurin, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams. So these corners aren't allowing a lot of separation. Marlon Humphrey and Brandon Stevens in separation allowed and single high coverage. Check out the numbers here. Marlon Humphrey's first in the NFL and Brandon Stevens is 4th. So the Ravens have 2 of the top 5 corners in allowing separation. And like I said, I think sooner or later, some of these footballs that have been placed in a perfect spot, like we saw the one with Terry McLaurin and Jaden Daniels on the 4th down in the end zone, some of those balls, I think, will start to shift in the Ravens' favor. And I think you're going to see some more turnovers. I think you're going to see more pass deflections, more incomplete passes. Now, part of it is the corners have been really good and sticky and tight in coverage, but need to get their head around and make a play on the football more consistently. But part of it as well is the receiver and the quarterbacks just making really good plays consistently. And Brandon Stevens has been on the receiving end of some of those throws quite a few times. Marlon Humphrey and Brandon Stevens, top 5 in separation allowed. I'm not concerned about the secondary. Mike McDonald was a big loss. He went and he got the head coaching job for the Seattle Seahawks. Zach Orr came in. Zach Orr is learning. He's adjusting. He held the best offense in football. That was literally the best offense in football in points per game last week in the Commanders, 23 points. He held the Buffalo Bills, one of the best offenses in football, to 10 points. So we've seen it in flashes, but it's got to get more consistent, and I think it will. At number 5, some updates. The Ravens have signed linebacker Christian Welch, an old friend, and a really good special teams ace, guy that's been a stud in special teams, to the practice squad. They also added cornerback Anthony Kendall to the practice squad. And remember, the Ravens signed Yannick Ngakoue from the practice squad to the active roster to help kind of bolster that pass rush after he had 2 really nice games with the Ravens. As always, smash the like button if you got any value out of today's content. It really helps out the channel, man. I love you guys. I appreciate y'all. Again, let me know in the comments what you think about some of these trade candidates and whether or not the Ravens will make a move. Thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.
Ray, when he wasn't looking, he ran me over.